Hello and welcome back to Rue's Life on this glorious morning here on the plot, and welcome to this month's Ponderings from the Polytunnel. So I've got lots to talk about this month. There's an awful lot been happening, so I'll start with me and then we'll progress as we normally do. So I have had a huge amount going on of late. I think I may have mentioned it in one of my previous videos, and I don't want to hark on about the negatives or be on, a downer for this video. And because in all honesty, I am feeling so much better. And there's a number of reasons for that, but the main reason is I've been doing all the right things to help myself. So I've been very mindful to look after my physical and mental health. So for my physical health, I've been doing more walking, which is also good for my mental health, and yoga. Just being a little bit more mindful, a little bit more forgiving. When things get a little bit on top of me, it's really common that my chronic health conditions will flare, which is what they've been doing. So I've just been being kind to myself and just taking the right steps to do all the right things. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned, and I'd love to share with you, is just giving yourself permission to pause. And that, sometimes that is just 10 minutes out of a day or 2 minutes out of a day, but it could mean that we need to take a break from work, or we need to take a break from home life. We need to ask for some help and just give ourselves permission to pause. It's so important. So things that I've been doing to help myself, apart from being over here at the plot and obviously doing things around the farm. So I've been gardening, I've done a little bit of riding, just generally pottering about on the farm and here at the plot. It's so good for my physical and mental health. I have been journaling, which I find really helpful to me. I journal, I've probably mentioned this before. It's not something that I do daily, but I do journal, and it does really help me. I've been doing some art projects, so a little bit of painting again. And I've also been barefoot walking, which I find is really good to ground me and connect to the soil. So mindful barefoot walking, where you really do feel, as I say, connected to the earth. And it has been proven, that there are so many properties that, it's so good for us if we can do that. Get your hands in the soil, but also get your shoes and socks off and walk, barefoot walk. There's nothing better than having mucky feet and muck up your fingernails, as far as I'm concerned. But also on those mindful walks, just being completely in the moment, listening to the bird song. If I'm near to the horses, the smell of the horses. I love the smell of horses. Listening to them breathe, watching nature, just looking and listening and smelling, all of your senses, being aware of everything around you. And that has really helped me. So here at the plot, it's all going on. I've been, I thought I was really far behind, but in fact, I've just started a little later this year than I normally would. But as I suspected, and as I knew deep down, everything is catching up. And you should have watched the plot tour by now, so you'll really be able to see what's going on. I'm just, absolutely thrilled with the way the plot's coming along. It's really exciting, isn't it, this time of year? And then 6 months ago, it was October time, I was telling you all how excited I was sad but excited to be changing my career. So having spent pretty much half of my life as a veterinary nurse and specialising in emergency and critical care, having progressed to being the principal nurse manager of a local out-of-hours clinic, I'd then stepped down from my managerial role into nursing again. Although as the principal nurse manager, it is full-time nursing, and then your managerial role is on top of that. But I just felt it was getting too much, so I'd stepped back to just nursing. And that really, looking back, it's so easy, isn't it, to reflect, and hindsight is the only exact science. So looking back, I realised that it wasn't necessarily the right thing to be doing. I think my health, my mental and physical health, was just taking over, and I wasn't making good decisions. But we can only move forward, and the last 6 months have been, there's been some really good positives. I've learned a huge amount about myself, and I will take that with me. I've met some amazing people. I've had some interesting experiences, and I'm not going to talk about it here because it's not something I feel I should be sharing on social media, but I had a particularly negative experience, and it's something that I tried to address, and it's not been dealt with, and I now need to try and deal with that myself. And it's something that isn't going to go away overnight, and it's something I'm going to have to keep working on, but I'm taking good steps to deal with that, and to make that something that stays in the past. So because of a number of factors, but also just because I realised that through and through, I'm a veterinary nurse. That's what I do. That's what makes me tick. It's what makes me buzz. Chris jokes that if you cut me in half, I'm like a stick of rock, and it says RVN, which is registered veterinary nurse, right the way through me. And I think he's right. So I was feeling bold, and I contacted my old line manager. And to cut a very long story short, I'm going back. So by the time you watch this video, I will have returned. And I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am. I just can't wait. So I've learned a huge amount about what worked and what didn't work, and what I struggled with and where I excelled. And I'm really going to take that with me, and I've discussed that in depth with my line manager, so that we don't make the same mistakes again, particularly where my health is concerned. And I feel I've got massive support there, and there's going to be changes, or already has been changes, but certainly will be changes to support me through, and I'm really looking forward to it. So as I say, by the time you watch this, I will be back where I belong, really. So that's really exciting. So then back to the plot. I've briefly touched on it. Everything is doing really, really well. As I say, you should have seen my plot tour by now. The spring bulbs over at the garden are looking fantastic. I've got the sweet peas out. Things are starting to move along here. It won't be long before I'm getting more out into the beds. It's just, I love this time of year. So everything's doing well, and I'm really, really chuffed. So on to the animals. They're all great. Kaylee, our three-legged greyhound, she's actually 11 now, and she's fit as a flea. She's doing really well, but she was just struggling a little bit. We are aware that she'd started with cataracts. They hadn't been causing her any issues at all, and again, she is on 3 legs, so she's missing a back leg. And very occasionally she gets it wrong on the tiled floors in the house, and she'll slip. But we'd noticed she was losing her confidence and was kind of dithering and not wanting to go where there were no rugs down. And I've been watching her, and I realised that it was moving from light to dark. So I think her eyes are starting to affect her more now, and a combination of that, along with only having 3 legs. And she's a big old dog. She was struggling a wee bit. So we've just made a few changes, really simple. We've just put more mats and rugs, just nice raggy rugs and cotton mats down. So she's kind of got from all the places she likes to go. So essentially she can now get into the kitchen, from the kitchen into the dining room and onto her bed. She can get up easily to eat her food, and then she's got rugs that can take her through and up onto the sofa. So we've made like a little pathway, if you like, for her, and she's doing really well. So simple fix, which will really help her, because once she's outside, she's absolutely fine. It was just on those slippy surfaces. Kay, our other greyhound with the heart condition, she normally is checked up by the cardiologist every 6 months, but at the last 6-month check, which was in January, it was recommended that she has a whole checkup. She has a whole host of tests, which I won't bore you with, but one of the things she has is a 24-hour heart monitor, which is fitted to her, and she comes home with a little jacket to hold it in place, and then we have to monitor her and write down what she's doing. So, for example, if she was out in the garden running around, or if she's sleeping, if she's eating, if we take her for a walk. So just log all her activities and any symptoms that we may or may not notice. So if she coughs, for example, or if she was fatigued. And then they pull the data from that and have a little look. And she'd just thrown a couple of funny things in 3 months ago, which is why instead of waiting for 6 months, we've done it at the 3-month marker. So she's had that monitor on, and we're just waiting for the results. But she in herself, she's great. The horses are just brilliant. I've been doing a lot more riding. They're really shedding out their winter coats now. We've got Pony in his little starvation paddock. Don't be alarmed, those of you that aren't horsey, it's just a term we tend to use. He's not being starved, but it's just an area where he has restricted grazing. It's just an expression that horsey folk tend to use, this starvation paddock or starvation area. So he's in his little paddock, and the boys are actually in the paddock next to him, so they can still, the big boys, so they can still see each other. The sheep are looking fantastic. They're still down in their winter grazing, which is kind of behind where you are, 1, 2, 3 fields away. And we're leaving them there for a little bit longer before we think about moving them on to their kind of spring-summer grazing. The chickens, unfortunately, are still undercover, and this is the longest a chicken lockdown from the government. Here in the UK, they're very strict, and it's getting tough, if I'm honest with you. We have made that bigger area for them, and they're laying, but the grass is all around on the outside of where they are, and normally this time of year they're free ranging and they're really enjoying the spring grass and the bugs, and it's just not the same. And it if I'm honest, it is taking the pleasure out of chicken owning, and we certainly won't be taking on any more for the foreseeable future. We're doing absolutely everything we can, environmental enrichment, hanging vegetables and fruit, and apples are fruit, you know what I mean, on strings, scattering berries, moving things around. They've got branches and perches, spending time with them to try and really keep them engaged and keep that environmental enrichment, so they're having as good a quality of life as we can give them, but it isn't the same as proper full-on free ranging. So on to books, and I have finally finished reading The Good Liar by Nicholas Searle, and I really enjoyed it. And it's the longest I've taken to read a book for a long time, but lots going on. And then after reading the book, I did actually go and find the film, which was Sir Ian McKellen and Helen Mirren, and it's absolutely brilliant. So I can recommend both the book and the film. Really good. And I'm currently reading a book called The Lincoln Lawyer by Michael Connolly. I'm only a couple of chapters in, but I'm hooked already. Really good. So essentially, he's a lawyer, and the car that he has is a Lincoln, and he's managed to get a chap so he has a driver, and you sort of start off thinking maybe he's just eccentric, but actually I think it's more of a financial thing. So his driver is essentially a guy that he got off from a case and kind of owed him, so he pays this chap a wage, but he takes a cut from that to pay him back his fees, so it's kind of suiting them both. And basically it is his office, so he sits in the back while this chap drives him around, and this is where he works. He's had a couple of failed marriages, still involved with both of those relationships. One of them is she's quite high up, I can't remember if she's a barrister or a lawyer or what I think she's another lawyer, as only a couple of chapters in. But yeah, and he's got a child as well with her. So really, really good, really enjoying it so far. And then on to things that we've been watching. So we've just watched on Netflix the series called Away. And I don't know if any of you guys have watched it. It's really quite good. It's a little bit kind of twee. But I really enjoyed it, and Chris did as well. So that's about a NASA team of all nationalities who are on a mission to Mars. And it's a little bit predictable, but it was a nice easy watch, and we did enjoy it. Got a little bit of white knuckle edge of your seat there as well. I really bought into it, and I really enjoyed it, and Chris enjoyed it too. I also recently watched a film again on Netflix, and it's called Paddleton. And oh my goodness, I cannot recommend it enough. It's absolutely beautiful. If you need a good cry and a release, it'll certainly have your tissues at the ready. It was just a beautiful story. So it's about two men who become friends. They live in flats. They're pretty ordinary guys, and they work ordinary jobs, and they have an ordinary life. But one of them has a terminal illness, and it's kind of their friendship and how it changes and evolves. And I won't spoil it for you in case you want to watch it, but oh, it's absolutely beautiful. I really enjoyed that. And then we've just started watching, and we've watched the first episode again on Netflix. We're on a bit of a Netflix run at the moment. It's a series, and it's called Anatomy of a Scandal. And I'm enjoying it so far. Again, haven't watched it through to the end. Sometimes things start good and then we get fed up with them and we don't finish them. So I'll let you know in the next Ponderings, because we should have finished it by then. But so far it's looking quite good. So have a little look at that if you've got Netflix. And finally, if you happen to live in the kind of North Wales, Cheshire area, or certainly Cheshire, because that's where it is, we recently went to visit a local Shire Horse Centre and farm. It's called Coatbrook Shire Horse Centre, and it was absolutely delightful. We really enjoyed ourselves. It's a couple of weeks back now. It's really good value because you pay your entry fee, but then you get free return for a month, so we could go back if we wanted to within those 4 weeks. And it was just lovely. And of course, with it being springtime, they've got piglets and foals. I can't remember if they've got other baby animals. Possibly lambs? I can't remember. But what I do remember is they've got some wildlife as well. And I'm always a little bit about sort of wildlife kept captive. But I believe that these are animals that would have been injured and rehabilitated and wouldn't be able to be released. I don't think they're just kind of captured wild animals, because if that's the case, I really wouldn't have enjoyed it. But their enclosures were absolutely beautiful. So we saw the otters. They've got a really lovely swimming area and a really massive enclosure, and essentially we're living a really good kind of wildlife. There were other wild animals, but we didn't see those. I think they have foxes, but obviously they're nocturnal, so they were probably sleeping. But it's really, really lovely. They've got a lovely cafe and a shop. Chris treated me to lunch there. Often, if we go out to these sorts of places, we tend to pack a picnic because we're a bit stingy with money. Well, that's not true, but it's just we're not big on paying for things that it's not necessary to pay for, so we'd usually pack a packed lunch and a flask. But it was really nice actually to just go and not have to think about packing and lugging things around. It was really lovely, and they've got a lovely shop, and Chris and I really enjoyed doing jigsaw puzzles. Not sure if that's something I've mentioned before, but we do, and we've completed 2 really good ones recently that my mum actually bought us for Christmas. One was of like an old steam train and station with the old vintage cars, and I can't for the life of me think what the other one was. Oh, it was like a cartoony, like naive art, just dogs. So it was bookshelves, and all the books were kind of doggy titles, play on words. I can't even. I think it was the Hound of the Baskervilles. I can't remember what they were, but they was funny. There were books that you would recognise, titles that you would recognise, but they'd been changed, so they changed the words and put like waffle bark or wag or something into them. And there were little bones and treats and toys all over the place. It was just really fun, like doggies climbing up the bookshelves, and one sitting on an armchair and one lying on a rug. And yeah, it was a nice one. So we'd finished that, and we bought at Coatesbrook. It's a 1,000-piece jigsaw, and it is of a canal with the old Shire horse-drawn canal, and then there's lots of kind of countryside and wildlife around it. So we're enjoying doing that at the moment. Yeah, so that's pretty much where we are up to at the moment. The sun is beating down on me. It's time for a cold drink, because I'm actually going to do a little bit here on the plot. So I hope you're all well. Thank you so much for watching, as ever. Take care, and I will see you all again soon.